Lately, a lot of you have been asking for this, in the comments and DMs, even under videos that had nothing to do with it, and fine, you win. Today we're diving into the SCP universe. Now, if you've never heard of it, or you just pretend not to, SCP is basically an internet archive, a massive collection of classified reports about anomalies, creatures, objects, locations, or events that defy the laws of reality. Imagine if someone cataloged every cosmic mistake the universe ever made, and tried to keep it contained in steel boxes. Spoiler, they don't really keep it contained. And I'll be honest with you, this topic is controversial. Some people absolutely love it. They live in the lore. They know every entry by number. Others can't stand it. They say it's messy, childish, inconsistent. And, yeah, they're not entirely wrong. The SCP universe is not comfortable. It's like a puzzle made out of pieces from 12 different dimensions. Nothing fits. Nothing makes perfect sense. But when you stumble upon the right story, the right anomaly, it stays with you, deeply. So no, this isn't going to be a complete guide, or a top 10 list with flashy jump scares. Today we're going straight for the nerve endings. These are 10 of the most terrifying SCPs ever documented. And if you thought this whole thing was just weird internet fiction, you might want to hold that thought. It started like most disasters do, with curiosity. 40 years ago, a U.S. Navy exploration ship docked near a small chain of rocky islands in the South Atlantic, 2,000 miles from the Argentinian coast, which is to say, the middle of nowhere, the kind of place you only find if you're already lost. And yet, they found something. Rare birds, alien-looking plants, entire ecosystems that didn't match anything back on the mainland. The crew thought they had stumbled onto a gold mine of undiscovered life. They were half right, because as they began taking soil samples, something felt off. The ground was too soft, too warm, too alive, and that's when it hit them. This wasn't ground. They weren't standing on rock. They were standing on flesh. The Foundation silenced everything, literally. The ship was torpedoed and sunk with everyone on board. A tragedy. In the name of the greater good. Whatever they had found, it couldn't be allowed to spread. That was the beginning of SCP-169. They call it the Leviathan, which sounds dramatic until you realize the name doesn't do it justice. This thing, if we can even call it a thing, is estimated to be between 2,000 and 8,000 kilometers long. For reference, that's larger than most continents. It doesn't walk. It drifts, slowly, almost imperceptibly. And even that is enough to trigger earthquakes, tidal waves, climate shifts. You don't contain something like that. You watch it. You pray it stays asleep. And for a while, it did. Until recently. The Foundation's Oceanic Task Force, Gamma-6, the Deep Feeders, noticed something strange. A new island chain had appeared on satellite scans, one that wasn't there a week ago. And then came the sound. A low, rumbling groan recorded deep under the sea. The kind of sound that makes seismographs panic and grown men shut up mid-sentence. The kind of sound you don't want to hear again, but do, because it means it's breathing. SCP-169 is breathing faster. It used to inhale once every 3 months. Now, once every 3 weeks. That's not just a pattern, that's escalation. If it moves even a fraction faster than before, we're talking 100-foot waves flattening entire coasts. South America would disappear under foam. Millions, maybe billions, gone. Not because of malice, just because we happened to be standing in the way when a god rolled over in its sleep. And then there's the age. Geological studies suggest SCP-169 is over 541 million years old. That's not a typo. That's older than vertebrate life. Older than bones. From an evolutionary standpoint, it shouldn't exist, but it does, which means we're the mistake, not it. One researcher said it best. The planet isn't ours. We're not on its back. We're on his back. A submarine called Nemo 1 was sent to investigate. Reinforced with runic armor? Yes, we're past the point of science. It descended alongside the creature's flanks, scanning for biological structures. What they found were scales, armored crab-like plates the size of buildings, respiratory fissures the size of canyons, an entire biome clinging to its skin like moss. And then it moved. Just a twitch, a ripple of its massive claw scraping the ocean floor, and the pressure nearly collapsed the ship. They activated a desperate contingency. Gas canisters designed to sedate the creature. Chemical payloads drilled into its exoskeleton, like tagging a whale the size of a continent. It shouldn't have worked, but it did. The movement slowed, the pressure stabilized, the ship surfaced, the crew survived, and for now, the Leviathan sleeps again. But no one celebrated, because everyone on that ship knows the truth. This wasn't a victory, this was a delay. A breath held in the throat of the world, and the next time it exhales, we might not be here to hear it. Before we begin, take a moment to ask yourself something. How certain are you that the world around you is real? Not just in the casual, day-to-day way we accept reality, but on a deeper, more uncomfortable level. How much do you trust that the ground beneath your feet isn't being held together by a lie? That the sky above isn't just a painted ceiling in some incomprehensible simulation? Most of us dismiss these questions quickly, brushing them off as philosophical noise. But James Talleyrand didn't have that luxury, not after he encountered SCP-3003. What started as a standard assignment for a Foundation researcher quickly spiraled into something far beyond comprehension. This isn't a creature in the traditional sense. It has no body, no observable behavior, no definable purpose. Instead, it is a force, a sentient corruption of causality itself. It bends time, folds space, reshapes logic, and tears language apart like paper. Its only observable goal was the unrelenting and methodical destruction of James Talleyrand's mind, body, and soul. The only reason we know anything about this entity at all is because of a corrupted, heavily redacted document found on Talleyrand's personal device. That document reads more like the ravings of a man losing his grip on sanity than an official Foundation log. It's filled with contradictions, paradoxes, and overwritten passages, as if even the record itself was caught in SCP-3099's reality warping web. From what we can extract, the entity effectively rewrote reality around Talleyrand, trapping him in a personalized hell where death offered no escape and suffering was the only constant. It didn't just torment him physically. This SCP turned his memories into weapons, resurrected his family members only to slaughter them before his eyes, and destroyed his colleagues, mentors, and anyone he'd ever trusted. It mocked him through imitation, created endless doppelgangers of himself begging for help, and filled entire dimensions with failed versions of James, all doomed to be erased moments after they became self-aware. At one point, it trapped him in an infinite hotel. Every room led to another version of the same room. Inside, strange beings wandered aimlessly, repeating fragments of his own thoughts back at him. Even his attempts to rationalize the situation were stripped from him. When he asked a Foundation doctor for their name, the doctor responded with an unintelligible noise, a guttural, nonsensical sound that made Talleyrand realize something terrifying. Names, logic, and speech no longer meant anything. Reality wasn't just breaking, it had been replaced. And yet, in the middle of that psychological ruin, something extraordinary happened. Talleyrand endured. For 1,000,000 years of torture, yes, 1,000,000 by his own reckoning, he suffered every imaginable form of pain, both physical and existential. Then another 1,000,000, and another. He wasn't immune to the agony, he simply adapted. He began to recognize patterns, to resist not with strength, but with comprehension. He started understanding that SCP-3099 wasn't just tormenting him, it needed him. It required a protagonist for its grotesque narrative to exist. Eventually, James found a way to take back control, not by overpowering the entity, but by rewriting it. He imagined SCP-3099 as something small, something absurd, a murderous penguin, a sentient pillow, a room full of screaming moose. He used humor, recursion, nonsense, anything to destabilize the entity's grip, and for a brief moment, it worked. He managed to trap SCP-3999, at least temporarily, using the same broken logic it had used against him. But the final escape didn't come through tricks. It came through a deeper realization that if he was the axis around which this entity spun, then by ending himself, He could end its dominion too. And so, James Talleyrand made the ultimate sacrifice. He took his own life, and when he did, reality snapped back into place. The Foundation's databases were restored, the physical laws of the universe reasserted themselves, and SCP-3099 vanished. No one knows what it really was. Some theorize it was an anomaly born from the mind of a writer, the metaphorical hand of an author torturing a character just to watch him squirm. Others believe it was a dimensional virus, something that should never have existed and never will again. But whatever it was, it left behind a warning. Reality is not as stable as we like to think. And there are things out there, things that do not kill you, but erase you, reinvent you, and trap you in a nightmare so long and complex, you forget you were ever real to begin with. There's something quietly maddening about repetitive sounds. Poe knew it. The relentless heartbeat beneath the floorboards was enough to unravel the sanity of the narrator in The Telltale Heart. But it doesn't always take something as visceral as a heartbeat. Sometimes the soft tick of a clock is enough. A reminder, steady and merciless, that your time is running out. That was the curse of an old German clockmaker from Freiburg. He lived surrounded by the ticking of time. He crafted it, repaired it, worshipped it. But one day, he started hearing a different ticking, one that didn't come from any of his creations. It was heavier, rougher, more organic, like bone grinding against bone. He tore apart every clock he owned. Nothing changed. The sound stayed, followed him, echoed at the edges of every quiet room. And when he left town to escape it, the ticking followed, until one night it stopped. And so did his life. The police couldn't explain it, but the Foundation could. They tracked down the anomaly, captured it, and locked it away. They called it SCP-3003 It looks vaguely human. If humans had bird-like skulls, spindly limbs, and skin like cracked leather. Its most disturbing trait? Its spine. The vertebrae rotate one by one in a perfect rhythm from tail to skull, producing a horrible, wet, tick-tick-tick sound. It doesn't stop, ever, unless it's about to feed. Because this monster doesn't hunt like a beast. It stalks like time itself, patient, relentless. It can follow a victim for months, years even, always just out of sight, always ticking. Until the ticking stops. That's when it strikes. Victims are torn apart, literally shredded by the thing's jagged limbs and torn open like fresh meat by its beak. It feeds slowly, sometimes over the course of weeks, and then it waits, ticking again, looking for the next. Despite being locked away in a Foundation cell, one incident changed everything. Thousands of kilometers away, a man was reporting the exact same ticking. Agents investigated and watched in horror as the man was torn apart by an invisible force in the forest. Meanwhile, in its cell, SCP-3003 sat motionless, not ticking, not moving, until it began eating. Even though it hadn't been fed that day. The implications are terrifying. Either SCP-3003 can project itself, or it never needed to leave its cage to begin with. And if you're sitting alone right now, wondering what that soft ticking is coming from the other room, don't panic, it's probably nothing. Unless it suddenly stops. In the cold silence of Siberia, there's a village that no longer appears on maps. It used to be farmland, quiet, remote, unremarkable. But then the livestock began disappearing. No blood, no tracks, no signs of struggle, just absence. People assumed it was wolves at first, or poachers maybe. But when the farmers began vanishing too, and no one came back from the search parties, it became harder to explain, even harder to ignore. The police investigated briefly, then they vanished as well. Some families spoke of inhuman screams echoing from the tree line. A child claimed to have seen a cow with tentacles near the edge of the woods. Local authorities dismissed it all, but when even military patrols stopped returning, the Russian government made a quiet call to the only organization that handles problems like this, the SCP Foundation. What they found is now labeled SCP-610, At first glance, it behaves like a disease, a skin infection that spreads through physical contact. It begins subtly: irritation, redness, patches of rough flesh. But in a matter of hours, that flesh becomes something else. Scar tissue layers over muscle. Tumorous growths emerge where bone should be. The human form begins to distort, not randomly, but with a kind of gruesome intent. By the 5th hour, the host stops breathing. And then it gets worse. Roughly 3 minutes after death, the body begins to move again. But what rises isn't a person. It's not even a corpse. It's something new. And it keeps changing. Each case is different. Some develop multiple limbs, others split at the torso, opening up like blooming flowers made of meat. And while their shapes are erratic, their behavior is not. They move with purpose. They seek out others. They spread the infection with urgency. This condition doesn't only affect humans. Anything organic is vulnerable. Animals, plants, even insects. Within days, entire ecosystems collapse under a carpet of crawling, breathing, replicating tissue. To investigate safely, the Foundation deployed a remote rover equipped with a live camera, codenamed Herbie. The footage it sent back was difficult to process. In one house, Herbie observed infected individuals seated around a dinner table, their skin ruptured and pulsing, tearing chunks from their own bodies and laying them onto plates in front of each other. They mimicked a meal. They even chewed. It wasn't survival. It wasn't hunger. It was ritual, something remembered, or worse, something learned. One of them had the face of a child, not distorted, not damaged, just preserved. It stared at the camera as its chest opened, revealing tendrils of wet tissue that pulled Herbie into the dark. Hours later, the feed briefly resumed. The lens was coated in slime, then it went black. Subsequent expeditions revealed tunnels beneath the village, filled with partially infected humans. Some were restrained, others were preying. In a collapsed chapel, one operative was killed by an infected man wielding a scythe. It seems the infected are capable not just of movement, but of memory, maybe even coordination. Containment in this case is not really an option. The entire region is under quarantine, encircled by Russian military forces working alongside the Foundation. Any organism displaying symptoms is terminated on site and cremated. Observation is only possible through long-range drones. No one enters, no one comes back. And yet, the infection persists. No one knows how it started. No one knows what it wants, if it wants anything at all. It doesn't ask, it doesn't speak, it spreads. Quietly, systematically. It has already shown the ability to adapt, to mimic, to organize. And that leaves one question hanging in the air. If something this dangerous can learn, how long until it learns how to leave? There's a planet orbiting a G-type main sequence star. From a distance it looks unremarkable, just another blue-green dot floating quietly in the Goldilocks zone. But this one is different. It's not just capable of sustaining life, it's thriving. A complex ecosystem teeming with flora, fauna, and something else, something too familiar. This SCP is home to 30 billion humans, genetically identical to us, genetically compatible with us. But they are not like us, not anymore. Something ancient and parasitic has taken root in them, changed them, not into monsters, not into zombies, but into something far more efficient, far more terrifying. A collective, a machine made of flesh and instinct. It all starts with a beetle. It basically is a tiny arthropod, no bigger than your fingernail. At first glance, it's just another insect. But once infected by SCP-3032, a microscopic organism, it becomes a delivery system, a biological weapon with a single purpose: to infest humans, to transform them. The moment the parasite enters a host, the transformation begins. Not grotesque, not cinematic, just effective. Emotions fade, individuality dissolves, intelligence remains, sharpened and repurposed. The infected are calm, coordinated, obedient. They don't scream, they don't revolt, and they don't question. They serve. Every single human on that planet is infected, and they like it. Is not a civilization. It's a system. Every city, every farm, every child raised in communal units, every hour of work, every moment of pleasure, they all serve the swarm. Even their architecture reflects this. Compact, symmetrical, wrapped in synthetic chitin to replicate the texture of their beloved parasites. Entertainment is reduced to rituals of tactile worship. Rubbing the bumps the beetles form under their skin, listening to the soothing hiss of insect swarms, visiting hatcheries for comfort. It's not dystopia, it's order, cold, inhuman order. And the worst part? It works. Their technology has surpassed ours. Their AI systems are more advanced. Their agriculture is perfected. Their energy grid is nearly utopian. And they've already made contact. Not by accident, not by chance. They opened a wormhole. They sent envoys. Not to negotiate, not to invade, to convert. They call it diplomacy. But make no mistake, it's infection with a smile. The Foundation had only one option: pretend. Pretend we're interested. Pretend we're willing. Pretend the Earth isn't hostile to their beetles, that they can't survive here, that we're preparing, cooperating, integrating, and for now, they believe it, because they can't lie, not anymore. Once infected, the concept of deception becomes obsolete. Truth is shared, purpose is aligned. They're an open book, a terrifyingly efficient one, but their sincerity is also their weakness. For now, the masquerade holds, but not forever. There have been cracks, moments where something deeper, older, speaks through them. Not the human, not the beetle, not even the parasite. Something else, something aware, something that refers to us not as a species, but as a resource, a means, a colony waiting to be claimed, and they will come, not in warships, not in virus clouds, but in smiles, in language, in promises of unity and peace. They will offer a life without suffering, without conflict, without loneliness. All it costs is everything, and if they're right, maybe we're the anomaly. There are doors scattered across the fabric of our world, some hidden in plain sight, others sealed behind layers of protocol and paranoia. Most lead nowhere, but a few are torn seams in the veil of reality. SCP-3003 is one of them. Officially classified as a door to another world, it looks harmless enough. Just an old wooden frame, silent and still, under constant armed guard. But the presence of a 24/7 security detail and a bizarre daily ritual suggests there's more behind it than the Foundation is willing to admit. The door doesn't just lead somewhere, it holds something out. Even by the Foundation's already absurd standards, the protocols surrounding this entity are unusually strict. Anyone assigned to its containment must score at least 72 on the Milgram obedience test. They must be single, childless, without close family ties, and, most importantly, completely loyal to the Foundation's mission. No questions, no doubts, just service. These requirements might seem excessive for a door, but that's exactly the point. Much of the data on SCP-3003 is buried under layers of clearance. Only the O5 Council knows what's really on the other side, and maybe that's for the best. Because the more you understand about this anomaly, the more it corrodes your mind. Still, personnel are sent through it daily, not to explore, not to study, but to perform a ritual, a containment procedure known only as Procedure 220 Calabasas. Its details are deliberately convoluted, its symbolism strange, and its execution unwaveringly strict. One guard, recently promoted and briefed, was selected to carry it out. He asked a simple question: what happened to the last one who performed it? He didn't make it out of psych eval, was the answer, and yet the guard obeyed, as expected, as required. The ritual began with a list: a live chicken, an obsidian blade, a silver aspergillum, 500 cc of holy water blessed by an Abrahamic priest, and a 1 kiloton nuclear device, reserved only for catastrophic containment failure. The last item was not symbolic. The D-slash assistant assigned to help him, as it turned out, was not a disposable prisoner at all, but a level 4 Foundation operative, specially trained and fully briefed. The deception was intentional. Even among personnel involved in the ritual, truth is fragmented and withheld. Roles are played, orders are followed. Not because they make sense, but because they must. At solar noon, the door opened. Beyond it lay a desolate, salt-encrusted plain stretching endlessly in all directions. 7 black stone pillars marked the center of this realm, each etched with symbols older than language. The celebrant began the ritual. Water blessed, steps counted counterclockwise, holy words whispered. The assistant followed, sacrificed the chicken with precision, and poured blood mixed with holy water onto a salt slab beneath the pillars. 7 seals, 7 rings, 7 thrones for the Scarlet King, he said. The Foundation refers to this dimension as SCP-3003 Prime, and what it contains isn't just dangerous, it's final. Beneath the ground, chained to the stone pillars, lies a massive, incomprehensible entity. Obese, scaly, jawless, crowned with branching horns. A god or something close. A world eater, bound since 1894 BCE by mystics whose names are now forgotten. And of the 7 chains that hold it, only one remains intact. The others have already snapped. The Foundation knows this. The O5 Council knows this. Procedure 2:20. Calabasis is not containment, it's theater. A psychological smokescreen to keep personnel compliant and morale intact, while a permanent solution is searched for. But none has been found. Every attempt to replicate or repair the chains has failed, and current predictions suggest the last one will break within 30 years. When it does, SCP-3003 will not be a curiosity. It will be the origin point of an XK-class end-of-the-world scenario. That's why they send loyal, obedient, solitary guards. That's why the nuclear device is real. That's why knowledge about the true nature of this SCP is so heavily restricted. Because there is no plan. There is only delay. When the procedure was complete, the team returned through the door. The guard looked back, one last time. The world beyond was quiet, still, but not at peace. The creature beneath the salt had waited for centuries, and it could wait a few more, but not forever. It didn't crawl, it didn't slither, it skittered. The thing moved like a spider on polished marble, all limbs and velocity, tapping across the floor with such unnatural speed that the human mind struggled to process it as anything real. The first time researchers encountered SCP-058 outside of containment, they reported hearing a voice before they even saw it. A deep, velvety, articulate voice that recited strange, disjointed phrases in a posh British accent. The nightmare is a dream to the nameless slug that wanders across minefields and the remains of deer and kings. And then came the screaming. When people hear the word heart, it usually conjures up images of sentimentality, love, heartbreak, perhaps the rhythmic pulse of life itself. But to those within the Foundation, the word has a different meaning. It evokes something primal, predatory, something that should never have been. This entity is a grotesque biological anomaly resembling a large, pulsating bovine heart. Only it's equipped with arachnid legs, 4 barbed tentacles, and a venomous stinger where the superior vena cava should be. It doesn't just look like a violation of anatomy. It moves and acts like one. And despite its lack of vocal cords, lungs, or even a recognizable mouth, it speaks, constantly, in that same voice, calm, eloquent, detached from the slaughter it causes. Its discovery remains buried under layers of classification, but what little information has surfaced paints a disturbing picture. During what appeared to be a routine dissection of a cow carcass at a Foundation site, a junior researcher reported feeling a pulse, a heartbeat. His superiors dismissed it until the lead surgeon took over and confirmed the impossible. The heart was alive. Seconds later, it exploded from the chest cavity, sprouted legs and tentacles, and turned the operating room into an abattoir. Security forces responded. They failed. SCP-058 escaped the facility and tore through a nearby town, killing indiscriminately. By the time it was subdued under the rubble of a collapsed building, dozens of lives were lost, and an entire community was psychologically obliterated. Survivors were relocated, memories erased, their homes and families rendered non-existent. But SCP-058 survived. Crushed, yes, but alive. It was brought into Foundation custody, placed under armed containment, and studied. For 3 weeks, it was quiet. Then it broke free again. It murdered everything it encountered: animals, personnel, civilians. It was finally stopped by an armored tank, which managed to pin it long enough for capture. Now, it resides in a concrete cell reinforced with heat-resistant steel, monitored constantly, and fed a live cow every 3 days. No one knows how it eats. The bones are all that remain. It never stops talking. The Foundation has placed strict limits on exposure to its voice, no more than 30 minutes. Beyond that, the psychological effects are unknown but feared, and those who have tried to interview it have met with disaster. One DC Last subject commented on the poetic nonsense it was reciting. SCP-3003 reached out, silently and without warning, and crushed him to death. Its last words from that interview still echo in the Foundation's archives. The sensual violence of lust is all the assurance you will ever need to know the worth of life. There's no understanding. It doesn't answer questions. It doesn't react logically. It doesn't even kill for sustenance or self-defense. It just exists to destroy, a contradiction wrapped in muscle and blood, endlessly pulsing. And like Poe's telltale heart, it keeps beating. No matter what we do to silence it, the sound comes back. That awful rhythm, that voice, that unkillable hatred. Even if we vaporize the entire facility, even if no one is left to record the aftermath, I suspect that when the dust settles, the heart will still be there. Still beating, still speaking, still waiting. Well, that's it for today. 7 SCPs. 7 glimpses into the kind of horror that doesn't scream at you. It waits. Some are cosmic, others are biological. A few speak like old gods, and some don't speak at all. But each one challenges the boundaries of what we call real, safe, or even human. They don't just terrify, they unsettle, they linger. This topic might not be for everyone. Some people obsess over it, others write it off as nonsense. But if you've made it this far, chances are, you see the appeal. You feel that chill, and you want more. If that's the case, you're in the right place. Stick around. We've only scratched the surface. And until next time, keep your mind open. But not too open. You never know what might slip in.